Good afternoon, motherfuckers. Listen, I want to start off. Usually I say that I love you guys at the end, but I want to start off and I want to explain myself. I don't just love you guys for your hot bodies, even though a lot of you do have hot bodies. I love you for your mind, and I love you for the fact that you're paying attention to preserving freedom in this country for generations to come. You're taking time out of your day to watch stuff that's not as entertaining as Netflix or some drama, the newest action movie with Dwayne the Bag Rock Johnson, the guy who's begging for money, who's got $800 million. Yeah. Anyway, I appreciate it. I really genuinely am doing this to get the message out. I am just trying to broadcast information that I find that I feel is not being seen by people. I'm just trying to be part of the group that's trying to highlight this information. You guys watching me, supporting me, means more than I can ever describe to you. There's been a lot of things that I've done in my life for money, as like a job. This is honestly one of the first things that I've ever done that I truly enjoy, that I truly think is important, that when I'm done at the end of the day, I feel like even if no one's seeing this yet, there is a point to this. There is a reason to be doing this, and it's not just about money. It's about saving and preserving the lifestyle that we enjoy. That's enough out of me. I just want to mention I'm not suicidal. I'm not going to be suicidal. I haven't been suicidal. So if anything crazy happens, it's just more confirmation. I mean, I don't know what's going to come of this. I know that there's consequences for speaking your mind online, and we've all seen it. I'm not ignorant to that fact. I just don't give a fuck anymore. It's gotten to the point where they've made me more uncomfortable now watching this than I'm going to be if I'm speaking up and getting harassed. So bring it on. Bring it on, motherfuckers. I don't fucking care. I'm here. I'm going to talk about the shit that's going on. And if you got a problem with me, I'm right here. So anyway, let's jump into it. We're going to be talking about some weird stuff with the Biden administration, just some Freudian slips to start off, and then we're going to watch some stuff by The Hill discussing 2024 and some other things. So,
for President Biden every single day, and I love working for President Biden every single day.
So today, as you all saw just an hour or so ago, President Obama announced that President Biden.
Oh, this is interesting.
Whoops.
Freudian
If
slip.
I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man or front woman, and they had an earpiece in, and I was just in my basement in my sweats looking through the stuff, and then I could sort of deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking and ceremony.
Doc Rich. He's got a lot of great content. You should go check his stuff out. I'm not just trying to rip him off. He's got good information, it's good prompts, and it ties in. Bear with me. It ties in to the Tucker Carlson, in my mind, it ties into this interview. We're not going to watch the whole thing because this is way too focused on whether or not Obama is gay. We're going to listen to this clip, and then we're going to talk about what I think is important about this, and it's not whether or not Obama is a homosexual.
Just a guy who's in town for the night, and it sounds like you're looking to party.
Yeah, pulled up in a bar outside, and there's this guy that's introduced to me as Barack Obama. I had given Barack $250 to pay for coke. I start putting a line on a CD tray to snort, and next thing I know, he's got a little pipe and he's smoking. So I just started rubbing my hand along his thigh to see where it was going, and it went the direction I had intended it to go.
Even though you had sex with him twice, you did cocaine with him, watched him smoke crack twice, you had no idea who he was.
I had no idea who he was.
Let me just ask the obvious question. What was Obama like on crack? Is it your sense that that's who Obama is, just transactional, or that he's bisexual, or like what is this?
It definitely wasn't Barack's first time, and I would almost be willing to bet you it wasn't as long.
The guy's running for president and credible information comes out that he's smoking crack and having sex with dudes. That seems like a story.
Well, it would be a story if the media really cared about telling people the truth.
So just to be clear, I have no problem. Any adult in the country can do anything they want sexually, as long as it's legal. It's your business. I don't need to know about it. I don't need to hear about it. The only important point, and what I would say with Obama making the claim that if there were some way for him to be behind the scenes, he'd be on board with that. He was just sick of being the front man. You got these slips coming out, and then you've got evidence. I mean, this guy, I watched the full episode. It's just not worth reacting to the whole thing. So he contacted the campaign. All he was asking was for honesty. He was saying, you know, Barack's standing up and saying, change. I'm being open and transparent about my drug use, about my past. Well, no mention of drug use. I think it was in 2015. 1999. I'm sorry, 1999. So he contacted the campaign and said, hey, you guys are claiming that you're being honest, but you're not, because Obama's done cocaine as late as 1999. That was not what he was saying, as far as I understand. Again, this isn't the hill that I'm going to die on. It's just an interesting concept. So he was asking for honesty about homosexual encounters. I mean, if you're going to say that I'm no dirty laundry, I'm telling everybody the truth about myself. Well, this guy is just claiming that you're not telling the truth about yourself. And so it calls into question his integrity, not because he's a homosexual, simply because he's not owning who he is when he's claiming to take ownership for who he is. So that in itself is a very sticky situation to put yourself into. If you claim, I mean, a lot of people don't claim to be transparent and honest about themselves. Once you start claiming that you're going to do that, though, I feel like you are obligated to follow that up if you expect people to believe your shit. So that's the only thing that's kind of interesting about those two clips together, is you get a picture that there's definitely behind the scenes things that are not being acknowledged or talked about. No one even knew about this. I mean, some people did, but they just suspected that Obama was a homosexual from observing his behavior, is what I've been reading in comments. Whether or not those claims are true or not, I'm not going to get into that. So this is all allegedly, according to what was said in this interview. I'm making no further claims, and I just want to make that clear, because you get in trouble for making claims, So you just got to we're trying to be careful. We're trying to talk about things within the narrow parameters that our wealthy overlords have given us. They're like, yes, you can still speak, but within the lines, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to drive as close to the line as possible so that we can get the information out, but still saying allegedly, I don't know shit. Don't listen to me. Listen to me. I'm just giving you the information. Please draw your own conclusions. I'm not trying to brainwash anybody. If anything, I'm attempting to help people unbrainwash themselves if they are so inclined to look at alternative sources of information other than the mainstream media. That's what I'm here for. So, without further ado, let's get into one of these Hill videos.
Democrats are scrambling to appeal to early black voters, a constituency the party will need to rely on when it comes to squeaking out a win for President Biden in 2024.
Listen. Sending someone to jail, falsely accusing them and incarcerating them and running them through the system. Black people have sympathy for that because the system has been screwing them for a very, very long time. So the left has generated a lot of unanticipated, and I can't believe that their political analysts did not see this coming. They've done two things. They've forced some indictments against Hunter, even though what they're doing against Hunter is a joke. It's the weapons charges. I mean, they better be still planning to indict based on the financial situations and actually investigate the real corruption, which involves his father. They're indicting him on charges, the only charges really that are completely separate from his father, intentionally. They're trying to give you a little kernel of corn instead of giving you a plate of food, which is what you want. And so don't be deceived. And also, like the same day, the Mexican government showing aliens, I think that's super cool. I hope it's real, but I also hope that it's not a coordinated effort to shift the collective eyeballs off of what's going on with our government, right? I mean, aliens, they've been here, they're here possibly. Who fucking cares? We got an election where the fate of our freedoms and the agendas that are going to be pursued are going to be important for the future. So, just don't get distracted. They always do this. They always do the distraction technique. Oh, important news that people should pay attention to. Oh, what can we, Michael Jackson died. Oh my God. Aliens. Just whatever is sensational, throw it out there.
One Democratic strategist told The Hill, quote, "The barrier here is not how do we make them like Biden. The barrier here is how do we convince them that government works."
President Biden continues to laud his administration's achievements for the black community, but Fox polling from 2020 and 2023 shows his popularity among these voters plummeting, while Donald Trump has seen a substantial boost. Here to discuss further is co-host of Revolutionary Blackout Network and host of the Savvy Saps podcast, Sabrina Salvati. Welcome, Sabrina.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So do you buy, the administration's claims that everybody, including everybody in the black community, should just be all fine and dandy with how things have turned out?
I do not. I think that I have heard more from black people that they're not willing to just cave over and vote for the Democratic Party this time around. I think that poll is very telling. This is the first time, at least since I've been eligible to vote, where I've seen 20% support from African Americans for a Republican presidential candidate. So Donald Trump's support among African Americans has actually increased compared to where it was in 2020. And I think the Democratic Party should be very concerned about this. I think this idea that Donald Trump is scary, and I'm just not convinced that that message about Donald Trump is going to work with black voters.
If anybody's tuned in and is pissed off that black person's talking about the idea that Trump isn't so bad and isn't racist, all the claims that have been made that he is, show me any evidence. Leave it in the comments. I'd love to hear it. So far, I've heard nothing. He let a black lady who was having trouble stay in Trump Tower for free to get back on her feet. He employs black people as part of his organization. He's done, while he was in the White House, he did a whole bunch of stuff for the black community, including there was a memorial that he did related to, I watched a video about this a couple weeks ago. I'll try to look it up while the video plays.
This time around in 2024, the way that it did in 2020. And I say this because during 2020, that was a chance when we were like, well, we could have a Biden presidency and it could be different compared to how it was with Donald Trump. Well, now we've had both. We've had a Biden presidency and we've had a Trump presidency. And a lot of African American voters feel that economically their life is not improved and it's actually become worse under Joe Biden presidency. So I think that the Democratic Party should be very concerned because they cannot win without African American support. And this could turn the page, I think, in reference to, we look at electoral politics and where people stand, African Americans stand in reference to the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. So we could see a change here.
Yeah, I mean, it feels a little like Joe Biden is the victim of his own 2020 rhetoric, where he was very explicit about how much he needed the black vote to win not just the presidency, but the Senate in Georgia, and made very specific and targeted politics to both people in Georgia and to black Americans on the whole, including setting a one-year deadline for himself to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which, of course, we're now blown, 2 years past that deadline, 2.5 years past that initial deadline he set for himself. Obviously, canceling student debt is not something that happened, but people tend to forget that he specifically said he would cancel all student debt for graduates of HBCUs. We have not seen that. Instead, we see an HBCU being targeted earlier this week, where Black students in particular, were targeted to be victims of hate crimes only because that shooter was not let in Jacksonville. Did that not end up being the case? We obviously had the whole rigmarole over the amount that was promised in the checks that didn't come to fruition. And in the backdrop of all of that, I'm seeing a new stat showing that only 2% of Black millennials make over $100,000 a year. Now, obviously, $100,000 is twice as much as the American average, but those are also very small numbers compared to other groups. So what do you think that Biden might have to show? Is it possible for him to show anything to the Black community at that point that would give them confidence that he's able and willing to follow through on whatever campaign promises he makes this time around?
I'm not sure that any changes that he makes right now would actually change people's minds, for the people who said that 20%, for example, that said that they support Donald Trump. And the reason why I say that is because this isn't just about Joe Biden. This goes back to other Democrat presidents that have not fulfilled their promises and have not tried to help the Black community. That includes Barack Obama, who was a big disappointment for a lot of African Americans in this country in reference to where he stood with helping people in the Black community. Joe Biden really doesn't have a Black agenda. And I think that's important for people to understand. It's one thing when you're running for president, you make these promises and then you don't fulfill them. And the Democratic Party, for a long time, they have pandered to the Black community. When Black people are asking for certain policies to be passed, they say the right rhetoric when they're running their campaigns, but once they're elected, they ignore the Black community. In fact, I feel like we're the only group where the Democratic Party actually panders this much to, and they just don't fulfill these promises. So it was only a matter of time that eventually Black people are going.
I don't know. I think they make a ton of promises on pretty much all sides. I mean, most politicians make a shitload of promises and deliver on next to none of them. And we just have become fairly accepting and used to that, accustomed to it. And the idea that a politician wouldn't go back on promises is actually more shocking to most people than the idea of actually saying something and doing it. So it's Camp Nelson is the national monument that Trump designated. Initially established as a Union Army supply depot and hospital, Camp Nelson became a key emancipation site and refugee camp for African American soldiers and their family during the Civil War. So that's certainly not racist. But it's also not going to be highly reported because people want to believe that Trump is racist, and it's things like this that undermine that narrative. So it's an inconvenient truth that yeah, just let that one fall through the cracks. No one cares.
To look at both parties, and I think they should look at every party and independent candidates as well and say, is this really working for us? So I think going forward, it may be a little bit too late for a Biden presidency, because we saw this with Joe Biden, we saw it with Barack Obama, we saw this with Bill Clinton. How much longer are Black people supposed to wait to get some type of concessions from the Democratic Party?
Well, now President Biden is facing another online dragging for suggesting that he convinced Strom Thurmond to vote for the Civil Rights Act of 1963. Let's watch.
But pause for just a moment. I thought things had changed. I was able to literally, not figuratively, talk Strom Thurmond into voting for the Civil Rights Act before he died. And I thought, well, maybe there's real progress. But hate never dies. It just hides. It hides under the rocks.
Just a few problems there. Strom Thurmond did not vote yes for the Civil Rights Amendment. Biden didn't become a senator until 1973. Is this, he
just has a never-ending history of lying, and this is our fucking president. He lied about his academic record. He lied about he plagiarized speeches, which is fucking lying. His first presidential campaign shit the bed because I think it was the plagiarized speeches, but then he's also lied to the media about his academic record. He went to Maui and was talking about how he almost lost his Corvette in a fire, so he knows all about, all their struggles. As far as I've read, that story is complete horseshit fabrication. So the guy is just, once you get addicted to lying, you just get so used to just spewing whatever's convenient. And if there's no consequences ever, then why would you ever stop just being a shitbag liar? So it's really a shame and it's embarrassing that this is our president and he just lies to the whole world. Everybody knows he's a liar and nobody calls him out on it. I mean, except for a few people. Most people just let the lies go, elect him to president, don't investigate his son, even though there's laptops with evidence. It's just, the country's sick.
As these gaffes sometimes, remembering things that didn't happen or in vastly different circumstances than they did. Is this passing muster? Are people, believing the claims he's making about his own, history in crafting civil rights legislation?
Single-handedly freeing Nelson Mandela from jail. What's next?
He declared the Emancipation Proclamation, I think.
Did you know that Joe Biden actually delivered me as a baby?
Oh, that was nice of him. It's funny. There's this funny Twitter account that's photoshops Trump very convincingly into all these old photos. They go, oh, that was Trump with George Washington at the Battle of whatever. This is like kind of Biden's equivalent of that. He should get a meme team together to bear out some of these claims.
But I think this is the reason why some people are more, attracted to a Donald Trump for president than Joe Biden. This is what I've heard from people because they feel like Trump is more real. Yeah. He's more raw, which is not something that the establishment from either party actually wants revealed. One of the things that I've noticed, the fact that Donald Trump, his support continues to increase every time he receives another indictment. Yeah. And also, particularly with African-American voters, they're starting to see through this. They're like,
the only person that's going to fucking target the system is the person being targeted by the system, and everybody else has gotten a free pass. No one else is indicted so far. So the only person who we know is going to go after the system is the person that is being dragged through the mud by it right now. And then you got Vivek and RFK claiming they're going to go after the system, but politicians making promises and following through, as we've already discussed, does not have a long and fruitful history. So I'm hesitant to believe, Donald Trump, his biggest issue is how polarizing he is and the fact that half the country is going to lose their mind and not listen again for 4 years, which is really not what we need. But we've got two problems, not just the division in the country. We've got huge amounts of corruption in our government. So it's just another choice we have to make that's not based on what we want. It's based on the lesser of two evils. And I'm so sick of being presented with these choices. That's why I keep saying we should vote all the incumbents out. Anyone who's not vocally speaking out against the corruption and the prosecutions, the lopsided prosecutions, and the fact that the DOJ and the legislative, so the judicial, legislative, and executive branches are supposed to be separate and equal checks and balances against each other, and it seems like everybody's colluding and cooperating to prosecute one man. Meanwhile, everybody else is doing nothing wrong, apparently, even though there's evidence of corruption. Until, yesterday, there was no indictment, and then they're indicting Hunter for charges that have nothing to do with Biden's involvement. The financial, the bribes, the quid pro quo, the fact that Hunter Biden is worth $230 million. How the fuck does that happen when he's been unemployed and a drug addict for most of his life? What's his qualifications? How did he make that money? Please, drop me links. Tell me, explain to me how that's legitimate. How $230 million is legitimately Hunter's deserving of that amount of wealth. What has he done?
Like, how many times are they going to try to come after this guy? There's also the issue of the police purposely targeting people to try to take them down that really does resonate with a lot of African American voters. So
Hell
I
yeah.
think these indictments actually, instead of hurting Donald Trump, they're actually helping Donald Trump. And I think that's something that the Democratic Party really needs to understand. I think they thought that this would work in their favor, but it's not working in their favor. If you look at Donald Trump's poll numbers, he was much lower before the indictment started, and now he just continues to increase and increase. And I've seen multiple videos and I've talked to multiple people who are African American that said this time around they will support Donald Trump. And so this is what happens when the Democratic Party tries to rely on the Republican Party is so bad, so vote for us. Eventually, you're going to run out of steam with that message. If you're not delivering something for the people will eventually turn away.
Yep.
Tabby, do you think that either Donald Trump or Joe Biden have an agenda for working class and poor people in this country?
Not really. I think that people, in my opinion, I think that people should leave both parties. I think that they're both corporate and they support.
I love it. It's amazing. What she just said is amazing. Just vote all of the incumbents out. Anyone, like I said, who is not being vocal and transparent, and you can clearly see that they are anti-corruption, anti-establishment. They're not protected and part of this machine. There are some people out there that are very frustrated and speaking out and trying to make things happen, and they're getting largely ignored because they are outsiders. So we need to identify our outsiders, and we need to target the insiders and get rid of establishment politicians, clean the system out, and then clean the system out of money once we get new people in there that will cooperate, because they understand that they'll be gone as well. You get new people in, you get money out of the election system, you get money out of lobbying, you return the government to the people, and you put term limits on it. I don't think anybody should be in office for more than 10 years. That gives you way too much time to become compromised, to get bought out, to become an asshole, to become jaded, to hate the system. We just need fresh blood. You need new people in the system. You can't have these fucking geriatric motherfuckers that should be in a nursing home and they're still running the country. They don't care about the future. They have no future. They're very short term. When you get people that old, their frame of reference is like, oh, I've only got less than 10 years left, so who gives a shit? And you can see that represented in their behavior.
Support their donors. They support Wall Street and the military-industrial complex.
Yep.
And as long as you have those two items hanging over both of those parties, it's going to be really hard for things to change for working class people. But that being said, what I've seen, it seems like particularly in the Democratic Party, even those politicians that said they would fight for those issues for working class people, once Democrat leadership says the opposite, they go in line with the Democrat leadership. So that's a big part of the problem. Whereas in the Republican Party, there are people that are willing to push back on Republican leadership. And we've seen that display during the Kevin McCarthy speakership. So I think that is a little bit of a difference there. But at the end of the day, they're both corporate. So we have to find a way to break away from corporate money and electoral politics if we want to see real substantial change.
Sabrina, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll have more Rising right after this.
Thank you.
I love to see that their corruption is actually going to be their undoing in the black community. For so long, they've been making disingenuous claims and then doing nothing once they get the vote. So this has really been a joy for me to watch as the black community walks away. Candace Owens has been saying this forever. These people are not your friends. The party of guilty white people who hate themselves and hate America are not the people that you want to follow, because their self-hatred is not only destroying themselves, but by extension, they're trying to destroy this country and everything that is good about it, because the history of it makes them so embarrassed and upset that they just want it to go away. I mean, I don't know what else to say. That's the only way that I can even conceptualize what is happening. They want to destroy this country. They want to show that capitalism is a failed experiment. They want to give up freedoms to let the big government take care of us because right-wing extremists, which is code for moderates who just want a normal free life where the government is not oppressing and controlling you with every move, and communist governments also don't have separation of branches of government, checks and balances. It's just one big monstrous organization that once it gets corrupt, hammers the citizens. These people are not your friend. Communism is not your friend. How many times do you have to watch it fail? I know capitalism's got its own problems, but at least we can be free. At least we can be free to figure it out. At least information can flow and things can get better. Once information stops flowing, once you lose your freedom, you're losing your opportunity to pursue life, liberty, and happiness, which is what this country, which so far has been the leader in the past couple centuries, you're walking away from the foundation that built everything that's great about America and just throwing it out.
Former Fox News host Tucker Carlson again suggesting that he expects Donald Trump to be assassinated. Let's watch.
Are they going to let Trump be president?
No, of course. I mean, look, if, they protested him, they called him names. He won anyway. They impeached him twice on ridiculous pretenses. They fabricated a lot about what happened on January 6th in order to impeach him again. It didn't work. He came back. Then they indicted him. It didn't work. He became more popular. Then they indicted him 3 more times, and every single time his popularity rose. So if you begin with criticism, then you go to protest, then you go to impeachment, now you go to indictment, and none of them work, what's next? I mean, graph it out, man. We're speeding toward assassination, obviously, and no one will say that, but I don't know how you can reach that conclusion. You know what I mean? Like, they have decided, permanent Washington, both parties have decided that there's something about Trump that's so threatening to them, they just can't have him.
Okay, this is bonkers. I flagged this immediately after Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson did that sit-down, that counter-programming to the GOP debate. And the first exchange of questions that went on for an uncomfortably long period of time was a series of questions about Jeffrey Epstein, which Tucker Carlson said he was asking. Do you believe that he killed himself? He says, I'm asking these questions, Donald Trump, because I think that he was killed because of his politics, because of what he could reveal about all these important people in the world. And I think that you might also have a target on your back. I think we have a bit of that clip. Let's watch it.
Do you think it's possible that Epstein was killed?
Oh, sure, it's possible. I mean, I don't really believe. I think he probably committed suicide. He had a life with, beautiful homes and beautiful everything, and he all of a sudden he's incarcerated and not doing very well. I would say that he did, but there are those people, there are many people, I think you're one of them, right? But a lot of people think that he was killed. He knew a lot on a lot of people.
He was killed.
You think so?
I think the closer you look, I'm not a conspiracy person at all. I believe everything I hear. But yeah, the closer you look into it, I mean, the Attorney General of the United States, your Attorney General clearly lied about the Epstein death.
Yeah,
and
he was.
Why?
He was certainly. It wasn't well done. They had no cameras. They had no anything. Everybody was sleeping, and a case could be made. Look, I'm not going to get involved in it, but I can tell you a case could be made either way. But it certainly wasn't the most well-run place.
So the reason I'm asking you is I'm looking at the trajectory since 2015 when you got into politics, for real, and then won. It started with protests against you, massive protests, right. Organized protests by the left, and then it moved to impeachment twice,
right?
And now indictment. I mean, the next stage is violence. Are you worried that they're going to try and kill you? Why wouldn't they try and kill you, honestly?
They're savage animals. They are people that are sick, really sick.
Okay, so why wouldn't they try to kill you? Why wouldn't somebody try to kill you? A bunch of questions about why wouldn't someone try to kill you? And now doubling down on this line of inquiry with his other host saying, I think they're going to kill him. I think I'm going to kill him. This feels like, look, I'm no big fan of Donald Trump, but this makes me uncomfortable. This feels like kind of, dare I say it, stochastic terrorism. But Tucker Carlson is bringing up, trying to incept into everybody's minds the idea of assassinating Donald Trump.
I think he's suggesting, and you can agree or disagree with this, that Donald Trump obviously melted the brains of a lot of people to thinking that he's the great Satan. And there has been an escalation in, obviously, you're well within your rights to protest him. You're well within your rights to think that the conduct he engaged in is worthy of impeachment or indictment, conviction, etc. But it is an unprecedented level of opposition to this man and his rule. And Tucker's suggesting, what more do you escalate to? Now, I don't actually think there are plots to kill Donald Trump, and it is reckless to suggest otherwise.
It is reckless to suggest. It is reckless to suggest. Last time we brought this up on the show, I pointed out that the liberal media went crazy when Hillary Clinton suggested that Barack Obama might be assassinated, and that's why she didn't want to drop out of the 2008 primary prematurely. Because folks understood that there is a way that you can kind of encourage behavior by talking. That's what stochastic terrorism is. I don't think
Tucker is encouraging people to assassinate Donald Trump.
No, but I don't think that Hillary Clinton was literally encouraging people to assassinate Barack Obama either. But it was the understanding of the public was, why would you even manifest, why would you even say out loud, why would you put in people's minds the idea of assassinating someone who, in Barack Obama's case, who was already being targeted because of the historical nature of his candidacy from a racial perspective, and Donald Trump because, as Tucker points out, he has crossed so many lines in the establishment and hates him for all of these other kinds of reasons. So I don't know. I felt also, like he seemed uncomfortable.
Also, the assassinate Trump, again, this would be coming from the Democrats are the ones trying to take out Trump. Democrats are not like vigilantes right now in our current political understanding. The Democrats are the ones who.
The fuck are they talking about? The body count, the Clinton body count is okay. I mean, alleged Clinton body count. The gentleman who was hung by an extension cord, shot in the back of the head, on an estate related to their thing, and then the playbook. I mean, Andrew Tate talked about this because it's what's being used against him as well, allegedly. I don't know the veracity of his charges. That's coming out. He's claiming that he's innocent. The courts are obviously prosecuting him with whatever evidence they have. I'm not part of the disclosure process. I don't think that information is public yet. It's still being held until the trial is complete, so we don't know. But the playbook is slander your name, file charges, say that you're a shitbag, then file charges and use the legal system to accuse you of being morally bankrupt, corrupt, evil, whatever. And if both of those fail, which Donald Trump is on the third, fourth round of charges that they're trying to levy at him, if those first two steps fail, the suiciding someone or unaliving them seems to be like the next step. Like, you can, I don't know. Believe what you want about Epstein. Maybe the official narrative is true. Maybe there's something more to it that we don't know. But there clearly seems to be, like, if you can't be compromised and shut down and they don't like you, the system wants to try to eliminate you, and sadly that sometimes means that you lose your life.
You want to follow rules and experts and establishment and mainstream to the end of time. So they're not going to assassinate Donald Trump. They're going to subject him to bureaucratic processes until it drags him into the ocean. That is their modus operandi. It's not like vigilante's going to come and take him out is like a right-wing fantasy of how right-wing people take care of things these days.
But he is a right-wing person.
But he's not suggesting right-wing people are going to take out.
I disagree. So we both know that out of the Dominion lawsuit, deposition, disclosures rather, we know that Tucker Carlson said he, quote, hates Trump passionately. I hate him passionately.
He said that about in that moment. I don't know if that's a...
How many people did you once hate passionately that now you're besties with, Robbie?
I mean, I've certainly expressed unkind sentiments about people in the heat of the moment after a particularly rough day where I don't
There is
mean it.
exactly one person I can think of that I've used that sort of language with, who I now like a great deal, and that is a political commentator, one of Hillary men, Peter Dow, who was one of the worst people against the left back in 2016, but subsequently realized his politics were not where it was at, changed his mind, and has been a strident advocate of Bernie Sanders in 2020 and since then. I can't think of anybody else, and because he's substantively changed, I now have all this warmth and affection for him. Generally speaking, that email was not that old, first of all, and there's nothing to evidence that he has changed his position.
I think he was very well.
So sorry to interrupt them, but I just, I want to just show that I'm not just making stuff up. Okay, this is not something that I'm just making claims about. This is legitimate news that's being reported as mystery, surrounding. So, tied to tree, ruled suicide, no gun, and mysterious death of an aide of President Clinton, ties to Jeffrey Epstein, has been officially ruled a suicide despite there being no sign of weapon near the body. He served Clinton White House, was found dead on Heifer Ranch in Perryville, Arkansas. He was discovered with a gunshot wound to the chest and an extension cord tying his neck to a tree. So I apologize, a little bit off on the details, but there's no weapon in sight, even though there was a gun case and 3 boxes of buckshot in his BMW. Middleton notably signed late pedophile Epstein in the White House 7 of the 17 times he visited the residence. He was also reported to have flown on Epstein's infamous Lolita Express jet. He left the White House in '95. Following year, LA Times reported his executive access was curtailed after an investigation determined he abused his connections in an effort to become an international deal maker. In the months since his death, the internet conspiracy theorists have tried to tie Middleton to the Clinton body count, or the right-wing theory that Bill and Hillary have passels of their political opponents killed. Shotgun discovered near body. So how is the shotgun? Let's see. 30 feet. So shotgun was 30 feet from the body of Middleton when he was found. Despite previous claims there was no weapon at the scene. Mystery spa. So he tied himself to a tree and shot himself with a shotgun. It still doesn't make a lot of sense. Shotgun blast at a ranch 30 miles from his home. Okay, maybe the property did not have... Maybe it did not have ties to Clinton, so I am trying to be as transparent as I can, obviously hearing things and then looking them up and trying to make sure that I am saying the correct things, is what I'm trying to do here. So I apologize for the confusion. Alright, let's go back.
He was supportive or warm toward Trump or a lot of Trump policies before. I think he was, I don't know. I think he was I think he was deeply frustrated with the things Trump said and did in the election vicinity that harmed Trump and his ideas and the conservative movement, and that was extremely frustrating for people who actually care about the future of the Republican Party and conservative ideas.
Okay, well,
to watch Trump just embarrassing himself and everyone else, and just putting himself in like a future unwinnable position, and putting the entire movement in a future unwinnable
Well, Trump's
position.
still doing all of those things. He's still doing election denialism. He's doing it on Tucker's show with no pushback. But what we know from those same Dominion disclosures is that Tucker Carlson, despite having that private position about Donald Trump, Trump, understood that it was good for business to be friendly with Trump. And so he, in fact, castigated other employees of Fox News for saying anything critical of Donald Trump, even though he shared their underlying view that he hated him passionately. So now, all of this is in the background of my head as I'm watching Tucker and Trump sit across from each other. Trump, say what you want about him, he's a very savvy media figure. He knows what Tucker Carlson said about him. He knows. And he is a vain guy who does not like to be talked down to. And so I felt like there was tension between them during that interview. Trump opened with saying something a little bit shady about how, oh yeah, Fox News is bad. You used to have this great popular show, and now you're here stuck doing this with me on Twitter. And he kind of cleaned it up a little bit, but there was definitely tension between the two at the top of this interview. And immediately after that, Tucker Carlson started talking about, don't you think someone's going to...
I'm not trying to insult her intelligence, but sometimes I think that Trump makes like ironic jokes. He has very dry sense of humor. So I think he was actually insulting Fox. He's like, "Oh, you know, lost your thing on the network over there, and now you're stuck over here on literally the platform of the future." Like, media is headed for death. Conventional media is headed for death. More people cut the cord, stop watching TV. Broadcast media can't figure out and can't transition into this market as well as a figure like Tucker, obviously destroying Fox's numbers on his own without that organization. Not needed. They're just extraneous. They're just siphoning money out of his system, his shows, and providing no value add to the ecosystem. So you get these personalities that have things to say. They don't need Fox News anymore, but you know, you are still beholden to a platform. So instead of working for Fox, you're dealing with X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. So.
Going to kill you? Don't you think someone's going to kill you? And now he's still taking on this line of questioning. So it's not clear to me what he wants the outcome to be here. Does he think there's a legitimate threat against the president? In which case,
no, he's a provocative host, and he enjoys touching things, subjects of discussion that other people don't want to do. And
hello, both Kennedy and Lincoln were shot. The idea of dismissing this is. Okay, so they're trying to say that this is alarmist, but the idea of being completely dismissive of it is no better. You should be an adult. You should take a cautious, realistic stance on things and just say, well, it is a possibility, it's unlikely, but it's not ridiculous. There's this historical precedent. Presidents have been killed before, and he's not even in the office. He doesn't have the full Secret Service detail that the president has. He has the ex-president security detail. So not beyond the capabilities of the right bad actors.
And he's creating content. That's what I think he's doing. But later in the interview on the Adam Carolla show, Carlson made the case that CNN anchors are the mouthpieces for intelligence agencies. Let's watch.
The intel agencies have a big effect on what is broadcast on television and what you see on Facebook and Google as well. I mean, they're all up and down Facebook and Google, as I'm sure you know. And, you know, there are...
I just talked earlier about the fact that Biden had a judge rule against his involvement, the administration's involvement with social media companies like Facebook and Twitter, trying to get them to remove content that they didn't like. And the judge said that they exceeded some of the boundaries. This is a current legal battle that's going on. I'll put the link to that video in the description if you are curious about that one. But this is definitely real, and the sources are on that video. So I'll just link that video if you want to go over there and look at those articles that discuss the that whole debacle. You know, it is. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's hard to keep track of all the moles and corruption, whatever, that's all simultaneously occurring at once, it seems like.
There are a lot of anchors who, including people I know well and have worked with at different networks. I'm thinking of one in particular, a national security reporter who is just a mouthpiece for the Pentagon and the CIA and is knowingly telling lies on their behalf. That's very, very common, very common. And I can think of a number of people at CNN who I know for a fact are doing that exact thing. And so, I mean, they're reading government propaganda from the intel agencies knowingly. And I'm sure they've got some internal rationale that allows them to get up in the morning and face themselves despite having done something that dishonest. But I'm just telling you, bottom line, I know that is true. I'm not speculating at all.
Yeah, fact check. That is all true in my perspective. We've seen the influence of the intelligence community on the discourse on social media, and then also just in the discourse in the actual media, that all their experts are intelligence officials. The people who staff panels on CNN and MSNBC are increasingly national law enforcement advisors, national security perspective people, and that is the intensely anti-Russia or Cold War mentality that is now so at home on mainstream news is just worth denouncing.
And the fact that the intelligence agencies, the deep state, as it were, so entrenched in corporate media, it speaks to their power, right? And historic assassinations, I'm sorry.
So let's just, I might as well just show it. So let's just take a look. Biden administration coerced social media giants into possible free speech violations. I'll link this article, and also then this is the appeals court. So this is not quite, it's the Fifth Circuit, but it's not, hasn't been reviewed by Supreme Court. So the appeals court said that the original ruling was too far and said that not all contact by the administration is unlawful, but some of it is. Either way, if they have any sort of leverage, it should be transparent. If they're trying to get content removed, we should be able to hear about what they're trying to get removed. And also, what happened to the idea in the old days, if there's bad information out, you just like drop the real information. You could leave a comment if you had a government account that was meant to like go address these things instead of just going behind the scenes and trying to get things removed. You could go on, you could find the posts, if it's that important, instead of policing speech, you could be providing information, better information. Isn't that a better way to go about it? Providing people with more, better information. So go on, and instead of contacting and saying, hey, can you take this down? Just go on and say, hey, this is why this is wrong. Here's the correct information with multiple independent sources. So it's not just propaganda. This is real news. This is real information. It's corroborated. It's verifiable. It's not just coming out of our little ecosystem where all the corrupt little, Joes and Janes are churning out bullshit. I think that'd be a better solution than suppressing information, because it's dangerous. You combat dangerous information with truth, not deception and censorship. And I mean, the equivalent of book burning in modern society is deleting the digital information that we all become informed by. We've moved past the printing press and books. So books are still important, but the newer stuff is what a lot of people are paying attention to, especially the younger generation.
Have been tied to those in leadership who are willing to really challenge the core of that power. People like Martin Luther King, people like arguably the Kennedys. That is the argument that RFK Jr. has been making this entire time. Not just being kind of a rabble rouser and saying, oh, I hate Republicans gets you killed, but saying we're going to withdraw from Vietnam.
Yes.
We're going to disempower the intelligence agencies. That's what gets you a target arguably on your back. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they're not exactly disclosing their role in these kinds of...
She's absolutely correct. You can, in fact, they like that because people enjoy the football team aspect of the two parties, so they like seeing their politicians criticize the other side. But as soon as they stop just criticizing each other and they start to actually drill down on issues like, oh, why are we in this war? Where's that $2 trillion going? What is this? How come all this stuff is seemingly not on the level? You attack the issues that they're trying to push through, and that's when you become a true target. That's why Andrew Tate is being targeted, because he's not criticizing people. He's criticizing the agenda and saying that calling all men toxic demeaning us, telling us it's time for us to shut up and listen. That's not how you. That's an inclusive movement that is behaving exclusively and insultingly, demeaningly, disrespecting people, and then demanding respect. You don't disrespect me and then demand my respect. You bring me in, we have a polite conversation, we talk about things, and you earn my respect through showing me that you have put careful time and thought into your perspective, and then I will listen and revise my positions. If someone comes to me and says, no, I don't believe that you are correct and this is why, and I hear their argument and I can verify the information that they're saying, well, now I have new information and I am willing to change my perspective. I am much different than I was 5 years ago. I'm much different than I was 20 years ago when I graduated high school and watched um, the Al Gore Bush election debacle happen. People who are younger than me do not understand that this is not the first election controversy that has ever happened. And to be honest, it was very disheartening for a 16 or 17-year-old me to watch how, you know, the election system actually worked after school taught me that it worked X, Y, and Z, and then seeing the messy reality of it and the questions and the seemingly corruption, and then shortly thereafter going into a war that was based on oil. Clearly, we went to punish Iraqis and Afghanis for things that were clearly coordinated within the Saudi borders. But we just ignored that and said, oh, Iraq's got WMDs, and that was all BS. So it was a very rough few years there as an adolescent young man becoming, no longer a teenager, and watching and realizing the way that things happened. It was honestly it was a sad experience, understanding how many flaws the reality of the system had versus the idealistic teaching that I received in school about how everything is perfectly laid out and works great.
Assassinations and encounters, but I'm not sure that we can credibly make an argument that Donald Trump has exactly gone that far. I will say that he obviously has changed the discourse and helped to move the Republican Party from the hawkishness that typified it before the Trump era. But I think there are limits to the extent to which he's been really to challenge the blob.
Massive limit. Donald Trump is the best thing for the deep state, or whatever you want to call it, because though he rails against it, he took no steps to dismantle it. He's opposition to it, but it's a controlled opposition because
that's why he's safe.
Not because he's controlled, but because he's not actually going to follow through on any of it.
That's why I think he's safe. Despite what Tucker Carlson might be, I don't know. Despite all of his prognostications.
Was that Tucker up on the grassy knoll?
No, it's just Tucker.
It was Ted Cruz.
He paid the guys to stay. No, this is a joke, obviously. But stay safe, Donald Trump. Stay safe.
Stay safe, bestie.
We'll have more Rising for you right after this.
It's a messy time to be watching politics unfold, and I sadly, based on the other 4 years, I think he's going to have a very hard time dismantling anything, and this is why I keep saying, and I will continue to say, that we need to vote the incumbents out of office. If you want true change, you can no longer sit back and wait for some political savior to come in and make all these changes. They cannot legislate their way out of this. There's a lot of opposition because there's a lot of corruption from the people that are already in these positions who have the power to block this, to block these moves, to block progress, to block transparency, to block the agenda falling apart. So we as voters, we need to stop neglecting our responsibility as citizens is to be good stewards of our government, elect people that we verify are actually legitimate and are not liars, and to remove them and vote them out if they do turn out to not be what we were told. You have to believe people to an extent, but at the same time, fool me once, shame on you fool me twice, can't fool me again. You know, George Bush, he had it right. Can't fool me again. So don't let yourself get fooled twice. Once is enough, my fellow Americans. Um, we can still save this. We really can. I mean, it would be if we could just organize. That's our only failure point at the moment, is we are not self-organizing. It's difficult to talk about certain things, but you can do it. You just have to stay within the guidelines. Just understand the guidelines and stay within them. And we can have these discussions. We can make progress. We can figure this out. We can extricate ourselves from the situation that we've slowly gotten ourselves into. We can just turn around and walk away from these leaders that are just dividing us. These leaders that are, you know, whether it's Donald Trump or whether it's any of the leaders, candidates on the left, you've got people that are just taking us farther and farther away from each other purposely, because eventually we won't even be able to yell to each other. Won't even be able to talk at all. You got somebody like RFK. I consider him to be someone that I'm interested in hearing more about, but I'm sure that the establishment's not going to let him be the official candidate, even though Biden is running into some issues and may become less and less electable as he alienates the black vote and continues to have issues explaining how the information on the Hunter Biden laptop doesn't incriminate him. So you may have a different Democrat running against possibly Trump, possibly Vivek. I don't know. I mean, would you vote for Trump RFK if RFK would be VP? Would you vote for a Trump with DeSantis as VP? I don't think Vivek would be his VP, but Vivek, you know, Vivek, DeSantis, and, well, I don't know. DeSantis, he has done what he said he's going to do in Florida, but he just seems like kind of a tool, and he's not very likable at the moment, it seems like. So he's going to have a hard road getting elected as president without someone that makes him more likable at his side. I don't know who anybody's going to be, you know, selecting for running mates, but I'm curious if you guys have any ideas about who would be your ideal partnership. I'd love to hear them. I would love to hear your input on the idea of voting incumbents out and then demanding change to the way the whole system works. People in power believe that they're going to stay in power. They're going to stay in those seats. They're not going to get removed. They're not going to listen to you as long as they believe that they're untouchable. So we need to touch them. We need to give them a little poke, you know? We need to grab them and bring them in and sniff their hair and make them uncomfortable and say, listen, you better stop fucking around or you're going to be gone. We're going to vote you out. We're going to put someone in here who does listen. Anyway, that's it for this one. We're going to be back with more. We are not going to stop. We are going to cover all this. We are going to be right here extracting as much truth as we can. I'm going to apologize when I get things wrong. I'm going to try to be as transparent as I can. I don't have an agenda to push here other than unity and freedom to continue for the citizens of this country and hopefully the greater first world, because a lot of these countries seem to be having the exact same problems, almost like they're working from the same playbook, almost like all American presidents are related to the same royal blood, except for one or two, Garfield and someone else. The WEF, World Economic Forum, produces these global leaders, and a lot of them get put into positions of power, like Trudeau, who's running that country into the ground, suppressing the speech of Jordan Peterson, using the Psychology Board of Canada to try and remove his license and say that he needs to be re-educated for the way he speaks because he doesn't want to be compelled to speak. You know, for an organization that cares a lot about consent, they don't care about consent with free speech. They want to demand your respect. They want to demand your compliance. They don't want to earn it. They don't want to be part of a team. They don't want true equality. They want to take the power from the previous oppressor and become the new oppressor of the old, you know, to get its revenge. Seems to be a revenge tour. It's not genuinely a good movement. It's not something that they really want to bring everybody to the table and be like King Arthur, Knights of the Round Table, everybody's equal, nobody's sitting on the end and being a king. We all have a seat. We all have a voice. They don't want that. That's what I want. I want a King Arthur situation. Every single person gets a seat at the table and has a voice and is allowed to talk, is allowed to have an opinion. And if that opinion is wrong, then the others can help to say, hey, well, you know, the rest of us all have thought deeply about this as well, and this is why we believe this thing, and this is why we believe that your argument is flawed. And if everybody's willing to listen to each other, has open ears and an open mind, this is how the best ideas come about. Is not through suppression, but through criticism and debate and critical thinking. I can't believe that the things that I was taught as a child, I am now feeling like I have to reiterate them to the new generation because it's like lost knowledge. It's like, how did we build the pyramids? I don't know. Everybody fucking forgot because nobody thought to write it down. Nobody thought to keep talking about it. It's critical that we keep talking about the things that made America great, which is hugely offensive, I know, but that's ridiculous because America is great, it was great, and it can be great again. It's all what makes us great is the people. And there's no way that that's anti-human because I'm done with the racist shit and the gender shit and all this. We're talking about humans, okay? I'm pro-human. All colors, all genders. Even the people that want to be transgender and change their gender, just don't take that and go to the schools and try to indoctrinate children at the school level, and we've got no problem. You know, I don't care. I really don't. It's just stepping on other people's toes, whether it's white men doing it in the past and being like, nope, can't do that, can't do that. I don't agree with that. I want people to be free. I'm a libertarian. You know, I'm anti-government. I just want freedom. I just want freedom for everybody to live their lives. And that's not what we're headed for. What we're headed for is more government involvement in your life, government control over the media, a lot of things that are directly against the principles laid out in the Constitution that have built this country. With that, I'm going to shut up and I'm going to let you guys get back to enjoying your beautiful morning, day, afternoon, evening, whatever the hell it is. Can't wait to see you again. Take care.